Blessed soul, may the peace of Jesus and the blessings from above gently wrap around your heart in this sacred moment of listening. Today, we speak about something very few truly understand, yet your spirit has recognized it for far longer than this lifetime. Have you ever felt a strange calm when you're close to a plant? Have you noticed how you care for them with a tenderness you can't fully explain? Know this now, it is not coincidence, it is not simple sensitivity, and it is certainly not something material science can explain on its own. There is a deeper truth behind this connection, one that Chico Xavier once revealed. And when you understand it, you will never look at a plant the same way again. I know you've experienced this. Maybe you have a favorite plant at home. Maybe your hand naturally reaches for the leaves as you walk through a garden. Maybe you feel an unexplainable sadness when a plant dies, and you kept this to yourself, afraid others wouldn't understand. But hear me clearly, dear brother, what you feel is real. It is spiritual memory, friends. It is recognition of something that existed long before this life began. Before we go deeper, I invite you to a simple act of light. If you feel this deep bond with plants, comment the word "a root" below. By the end of this video, you will understand that this connection is not a preference. It is a mission. It is a calling. It is something your soul chose even before you were born. Now listen carefully, because what comes next may surprise you. Once after a lecture, a woman approached Chico Xavier, deeply distressed. She said she couldn't stay in crowded places. Her chest would tighten. The noise felt overwhelming, as if voices were invading her mind. But then she said, through tears, that when she was in her garden, everything went silent. It felt like she could finally breathe. Chico gently held her hand and said she was not losing her mind. He explained that she was simply too sensitive to the dense energies carried by people and plants, he said, are natural filters of divine creation. Have you ever felt that the world is too heavy, but near a plant you finally rest? In Spiritism, nature is one of the environments where energies exist in their most balanced state. When you approach a plant, your spirit recognizes this clean vibration, free from the weight of restless human thoughts. Plants do not lie. They do not judge. They do not carry resentment. They simply exist. Being near them is like energetically returning home. It is feeling the breath of creation in its purest form. Chico taught that green spaces in untouched nature are reservoirs of vital life force. Where human excess has not disrupted balance, energy flows in divine harmony. That is why so many people feel immediate relief when they enter a garden or embrace a tree. This is not imagination. It is spiritual chemistry happening in real time. Your paraspirit, overloaded by the chaotic vibrations of daily life, finds in plants a neutral field where it can finally reorganize itself. It's like stepping out of a noisy room into silence. Your body relaxes. Your breathing slows. Something deep within you exhales in relief. And here is something important to understand. People who feel this connection are not weak. They are spiritually sensitive. They are receivers of subtle frequencies. Just as the mind seeks stability, the spirit does too. And plants offer exactly that. You care for them, they respond. You water them, they grow. You prune them, they bloom. There is no betrayal, no ingratitude, no deception. Maybe you've been hurt by people you loved. Maybe you gave everything to someone who walked away. Maybe you offered love and received indifference in return. I know this pain lives in you. For spirits who have experienced emotional or spiritual chaos, whether in this life or in others, the predictable rhythm of plants creates a deep sense of safety. Caring for a plant is the spirit saying, "Here, I am safe. Here, I build something that does not harm me." This is the quiet anchor that keeps you balanced while you navigate inner storms. Chico often said that broken trust must be rebuilt slowly, and plants provide a safe space for the spirit to learn how to trust again. Every new sprout, every leaf that opens is a promise fulfilled. Small, but real. And a wounded spirit needs fulfilled promises to believe again, to believe that not everything disappoints, that not everything dies, that loving something alive is still worth it. But there is something even deeper than this. Something connected to who you were in other lifetimes. Chico once told the story of a child who, at only 5 years old, knew the names and healing uses of every medicinal herb his grandmother grew. No one had taught him. He simply knew. He would look at a plant and say which one was for stomach pain and which one was for fever. His parents were confused, but the grandmother only smiled. That boy had been a healer in another life. And you, dear soul, have you ever stopped to wonder why you know things about plants that no one ever taught you? Why you feel drawn to certain types of vegetation? Why sometimes you look at a tree and feel a deep, unexplainable longing? This is not imagination, it is spiritual memory. Chico used to say that some spirits reincarnate carrying experiences from past lives connected to simple living, to the countryside, to caring for the land. Perhaps you were a farmer in another lifetime. Perhaps you lived in a monastery where herbs were cultivated in silence. Perhaps you were a healer who knew the secrets of leaves and roots. These memories do not disappear. They remain engraved in the spirit. And when, in this life, you feel drawn to a plant, to a garden, to the soil itself, it is not a new interest. It is ancient recognition. The love for plants can be the echo of spiritual memories that recognize in that environment a familiar vibration. It is the soul quietly saying, I have been here before. I have loved this before. Deep down, you've always known this, haven't you? You've always felt there was something greater behind this connection. And now you're beginning to understand. There are cases where young children show abilities with plants that seem impossible to explain. They know when to water just by touching the soil. They recognize species they have never seen before. They sense when a plant is sick. Higher spirits explained to Chico that these are skills brought from previous incarnations, abilities developed over centuries that return as natural inclinations, as innate talents no school ever taught, but the soul never forgot. But stay with me, because the next reason may move you deeply. Now pay close attention, because this is one of the most liberating truths Chico Xavier ever shared. Plants do not emit mental judgment. They do not demand complex emotional exchanges. You don't need to explain yourself to a plant. You don't need to justify who you are. You don't need to prove that you are good enough. You're tired of having to explain what you feel, aren't you? Exhausted from trying to make people understand you. Have you ever felt like you give your energy and receive nothing in return? For sensitive spirits or developing mediums, living alongside plants represents energetic rest. It is a relationship where exchange happens without exhaustion. You give water, they give oxygen. You give attention, they give beauty. You give patience, they give growth. There is no emotional demand, no manipulation, no suffocating expectation. There is only mutual presence, simple and true. And that is rare. That is precious. That is healing for those who live surrounded by people who drain energy without even realizing it. Maybe you never thought about it this way before, but now that you do, everything starts to make sense, doesn't it? Chico received many letters from exhausted mediums who complained, saying they could no longer handle the pain of others, the invasive emotions, the thoughts that didn't belong to them. Fulgent. He always answered with the same advice. Cultivate a garden, my brother, because plants do not project suffering onto you. They simply receive your care and return life. It is a balanced, energetic relationship where you give consciously and receive visibly, without the invisible weight that so many human relationships carry. And there is more. The silence of plants holds a secret few people know. Chico explained that excess stimulation destabilizes the paraspirit. We live in an age of constant noise, information, demands, voices, opinions, artificial lights, mechanical sounds. The spirit was not created for this, dear brother. It was created for harmony, for peace, for the natural rhythm of creation. And do you know what happens when you are near a plant? Contact with them slows your thoughts, regulates your emotions, and allows the spiritual field of the incarnated being to naturally reorganize itself. It is like setting a broken clock back to the correct rhythm. It is not magic, it is vibrational alignment. The silence of plants works as a harmonizer for the paraspirit. When you are near them, you don't need to speak. You don't need to think of the right answer. You can simply exist. And for a spirit tired of always being strong, always being right, always being productive, this is immense relief. It is like removing heavy armor after wearing it for years. Have you felt this? That moment when you're close to your plants and you can finally rest? Spiritual mentors explained to Chico that the paraspirit functions like a sponge, absorbing everything around it, good and bad. In noisy cities, it becomes soaked with discordant vibrations, like a sponge submerged in dirty water. But when you enter an environment filled with plants, it is as if that sponge is squeezed and washed clean. Dense energies drain away, lightness returns, and the spirit can finally breathe at its natural rhythm, without forcing, without pretending, simply being. And there is still more. The silence of plants hides a secret that few have ever heard. Let me tell you something Chico himself experienced. One day, an anxious man once came to Chico, eager to develop his mediumship as fast as possible. He asked, "How long will it take, Chico? I want to be useful now." Chico didn't answer right away. Instead, he led the man into the garden and pointed to a jabuticaba tree. He said, "Do you see that tree? It took 15 years to bear its first fruit, but when it finally did, it fed dozens of people. The hurry didn't speed anything up. Only God's timing allowed it to happen." The man understood. Years later, calmer and more centered, he returned and said, "I learned from my plants." And that is true. Anyone who loves plants learns, even without realizing it, the spiritual laws of time and evolution. Spiritism teaches that nothing grows by force. Everything follows its own rhythm. You can water a plant excessively, but it won't grow faster. You can try to force a flower to open, but it will wither before its time. And have you ever tried to force things in your life? Tried to rush processes, skip stages, harvest before the season was right? Sensitive spirits understand this intuitively. While caring for plants, they realize they cannot force their own spiritual growth. They cannot rush forgiveness. They cannot skip the stages of healing. Everything has its time. Everything has its season. And this is one of the deepest lessons plants teach us without saying a single word. Chico often said that spiritual anxiety is one of the greatest obstacles to evolution. We want to become enlightened tomorrow, but we forget that even Jesus spent 30 years preparing before beginning his mission. Plants teach us this sacred patience. There is a time to plant, a time to water, a time to prune, and a time to harvest. Skipping any stage doesn't accelerate the journey, it only compromises the result. And the spirit that learns this through caring for plants also learns to respect the seasons of its own soul. Now comes something even deeper about how this care transforms you. Blessed soul, have you ever spent money on therapies trying to find balance? Have you searched outside for what was always within your reach? Caring for plants works as a natural form of vibrational alignment. It is a simple practice that helps the incarnated spirit leave mental agitation and enter a state of presence. When you care for a plant, you are here and now. You are not trapped in the past. You are not anxious about the future. You are just watering, pruning, observing. You are present. And presence is the natural state of an elevated spirit. It is where peace lives. It is where God dwells. That's why caring for plants is not wasting time. It is investing in natural emotional balance. It is preventive medicine for the soul. It is therapy that asks nothing in return but patience and love. As you listen now, you may be realizing that your plants were never just decoration. They have always been your silent companions in healing. Higher spirits revealed to Chico that many modern emotional illnesses, anxiety, panic, depression, are linked to humanity's distancing from nature. When you care for a plant, you are literally reconnecting spiritual circuits that were disconnected by artificial city life. It's like plugging something back in. Energy begins to flow again. The system starts working properly, and that unexplained sense of emptiness slowly begins to fill with something real, alive, and pulsing. And the next reason will help you understand why you feel so responsible for them. Now I need to share something profound with you carefully. Many spirits arrive in this life carrying early commitments to care for others. Family members, groups, missions of service. You're like that, aren't you? You've always taken care of others. You've always worried. You've always put other people's needs before your own. But not everyone finds healthy ways to express this caregiving energy. Sometimes you care too much for people and become exhausted. Sometimes you care for those who don't want to be cared for and end up frustrated. And then comes the blessing of plants. They become a channel where this caring energy can flow without emotional or karmic overload. You care, and it is truly needed. You care, and it responds by growing. You care, and it doesn't abandon you out of jealousy, criticize you for mistakes, or punish you for imperfection. It is pure care. It is love without debt. It is responsibility without guilt. And this is deeply liberating for those who carry the weight of always caring for others, dear brother. It is liberating for those who forgot how to care for themselves. Chico received many mothers who had lost children, many widows who had lost their companions, and he noticed something again and again. Those who returned to caring for plants healed faster from their pain. Why? Because carrying energy when it has nowhere to go turns inward and becomes guilt, emptiness, self-blame. But when it finds a receiver, a plant, a garden, that energy flows again, fulfilling its loving purpose without demanding emotional returns that a wounded heart cannot yet give. But there is something even more revealing, and it has to do with the very plant you chose to have in your home. In Spiritism, nothing is random. And Chico always said, observe what you love because it reveals who you are. Affinity for strong plants, delicate plants, or slow-growing plants often reflects qualities the spirit needed to develop. Resilience, patience, protection, or quiet strength. Have you ever noticed what kind of plant draws you in most? Have you ever noticed which plants attract you the most? That's not random. If you love cacti, perhaps your soul learned how to survive in dry, emotionally harsh environments. If you're drawn to ferns, maybe your spirit needs emotional moisture, constant care, gentle protection. If succulents call to you, it may be because your soul learned how to store strength for difficult seasons. Pause for a moment and think about it. What is your favorite plant? That choice is a spiritual mirror. It reveals something about who you are and what you came to learn in this lifetime. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't it moving to realize how God speaks through something as simple as a leaf? Some people feel drawn to plants that bloom only once a year. These are spirits who learn that not every reward is immediate, that waiting is part of beauty. Others love climbing plants that need support to grow. Perhaps these are souls learning interdependence, learning to accept help without shame. And there are those who love ancient trees that grow painfully slowly. These are spirits who understand that true greatness is not built in one lifetime, but across many. And now comes something few people notice about faith. Listen with your heart, blessed soul. To plant is to act in the present while trusting the future, just as the spirit reincarnates. You place a seed in the soil without guarantees it will sprout. You care for it daily without knowing if it will bloom. You wait without demanding. Does that sound familiar? Those who love plants demonstrate, consciously or not, trust in divine laws, even without immediate proof. They show faith. They show patience. They accept mystery. And that, my friend, is living spirituality. Not memorized belief, but daily practice. Every time you plant something, you are telling the universe, I trust, I wait, I accept God's timing. And this transforms the spirit more deeply than any repeated prayer. Chico used to say that planting a tree whose fruits you will never live to taste is one of the most spiritual acts there is. It is thinking of others, of the future, of the continuity of life. It is understanding that you are only one link in an infinite chain of creation. Whoever plants knowing they will not see the full result is practicing detachment in its purest form, serving without expecting recognition, loving without needing to witness love return. But stay with me, because the next truth reveals something profound about spiritual balance. Plants unite matter and life in a visible way. They are body and spirit at the same time, roots in the earth, leaves reaching the sky. And you who feel connected to them, dear brother, seek this same balance, don't you? You are not purely material, believing only in what you can touch. Nor are you a dreamer disconnected from reality. You want your feet on the ground and your heart in the heavens. Plants teach exactly that. To root deeply while always growing toward the light. Maybe you've always felt divided between these two worlds, between the spiritual and the material, between sensitivity and practicality, between dream and reality. But now you understand. It was never division, it was integration. It's what plants do naturally, and what your spirit came here to learn. Higher spirits taught Chico that many incarnated souls suffer because they try to be only spiritual, denying the body and matter, or only material, denying the soul and the invisible. Plants show the middle path. They need earth to support them, water to nourish them, but they cannot live without light from above. It is the perfect synthesis of what Jesus taught. Give to the world what belongs to the world, and to God what belongs to God. Live in the world without being of the world. rooted yet elevated. And now comes something that will touch deeply those with mediumistic sensitivity. Chico received many developing mediums who complained of intense emotional swing. His advice was always the same: cultivate a garden. It doesn't need to be large. Even one small pot is enough. Years later, many returned to thank him. They said the plants had brought them a stability no spiritual paths alone had achieved. Many mediums report greater emotional balance when living with plants. This happens because green environments facilitate the harmonization of energy centers, especially the heart center. Plants emit gentle vibrations that calm the heart chakra, allowing the medium to experience fewer emotional fluctuations and greater control over spiritual perceptions. It's as if plants act as antennas of balance. They absorb excess dense energy and return renewed, light, healing energy. If you are sensitive, if you feel energies, if you are a medium, your plants are invisible allies. Unbalanced mediums tend to absorb everything around them: pain, anguish, presences, without knowing how to filter or disconnect. Chico explained that plants work like spiritual lightning rods. They drain excess energy the medium absorbs, preventing overload. Like an electrical transformer that regulates voltage. Without it, the system burns out. With it, everything flows in harmony. That's why the homes of mediums often have so many plants. It's not decoration, it's energetic protection. And there is one more revelation about spiritual maturity. Spiritism teaches that more evolved spirits value what is essential. They don't need excess. They don't need to prove anything. They don't accumulate out of fear. Love for plants reveals exactly that: detachment from excess and affinity for what is simple, alive, and true. It's not about display or possession. It's about presence, life quietly pulsing. Those who love plants don't need much to be happy. Just earth, water, sunlight, and patience. And in the eyes of an awakened spirit, that is enough. That is true abundance. Do you see how this contrasts with the world outside? With consumerism, haste, the endless chase to have more, be more, appear more, your plants teach you the opposite. They teach you that less is more, and that what truly matters is invisible to the eyes. Material things never held the same value for them. Chico used to say that the most elevated spirits who visited him often spoke with nostalgia about the simple gardens they had in past lives. Not palaces, not wealth, but small garden beds where they planted love and harvested peace. They would say, nothing we accumulated stayed with us, but the joy of watching a seed sprout. That crossed beyond death. And that is why love for plants is a sign of an experienced soul, one that has already understood that happiness cannot be bought or stored. It is cultivated day after day through small acts of care. Now comes something very practical about your daily spiritual health. Caring for plants helps the incarnated spirit emotionally recalibrate. It works as a natural form of daily spiritual hygiene. Just as we bathe to cleanse the body, caring for plants cleanses the soul. It removes excess, rebalances what was disordered, reorganizes what was scattered. It is spiritual self-care that requires no course, no guru, no money. It only requires willingness to be present with something alive that depends on you. And that alone is deeply therapeutic. Blessed soul. Every time you water, prune, or simply observe, you are practicing conscious presence. You are saying no to mental chaos. You are choosing peace. Spiritual mentors explained to Chico that many light obsessions and negative spiritual influences take hold precisely when the spirit is vibrationally disorganized. Like a messy house that attracts dirt, the simple act of caring for plants works as daily spiritual tidying. You organize thoughts, calm emotions, clear stagnant energy. It is active meditation, prayer in motion, therapy without a therapist. Just you, the soil, the water, and the reorganizing silence that heals more than 1,000 words. And now comes the final revelation that brings everything together. Remember the secret I promised at the beginning? Now you will understand it fully. Many spirits learn through plants what they once needed to learn about themselves. Respecting limits. Accepting time. Nourishing with consistency, and allowing growth. If you water too much, the plant dies. If you water too little, it dies. If you expose it to too much sun, it burns. If you leave it in the shade, it withers. These lessons apply to the spirit as well. Caring for plants is a rehearsal for caring for yourself. And when you learn how to care for a plant properly, you also learn how to care for yourself, without excess, without neglect, with balance. That is why your connection with plants is so deep. It is not a hobby. It is not a distraction. It is spiritual therapy. It is karmic learning. It is a memory of who you were in preparation for who you are becoming. Now you understand. Now it makes sense. Now you know why you always felt this way. Chico revealed that many spirits choose, before reincarnating, to have experiences with plants in order to relearn self-respect they lost in previous lives. Souls who erased themselves for others, who exhausted themselves until death, who never said no. These spirits need to relearn boundaries. And plants teach gently: care for me, but don't drown me. Give me light, but don't burn me. Love me, but respect my time. This is the lesson you needed to learn about yourself, disguised as gardening, offered by divine mercy in the form of a green leaf. Now, blessed soul, the full truth is revealed. Loving plants is not just an aesthetic preference or a passing hobby, dear brother. It can be the spirit seeking balance, silence, and reconnection with the natural laws of life that the modern world tried to erase. Perhaps when you care for a plant, your spirit is slowly remembering how to care for itself. Perhaps it is recovering ancient memories of when it lived closer to the earth, closer to God. Plants do not save us, but they remind us of something essential: that life is simple, that love is quiet, that growth cannot be forced, and that in the end, everything we truly need is already within reach: light, water, earth, and patience. You who made it this far did not arrive by chance. If you are listening to this now, it is because your spirit needed to hear it. Because you were searching for confirmation of what you always felt, but could never fully explain. And I tell you now, everything is okay. What you feel is real. What you live is sacred. What you do when you care for your plants is silent spiritual work. If you are still here, dear soul, I thank you from the depths of my heart. May this message have touched something deep within you. May you now look at your plants with new eyes, recognizing them not as decoration, but as silent spiritual companions. And if you don't yet have plants, perhaps this is the sign you were waiting for to begin. You don't need a large garden. One small pot is enough. One seed, one intention. The spirit will recognize it and the healing will begin. Now become part of this current of light. Write in the comments, "I care and I am cared for," and share the city you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel for more spiritual revelations. Like this video if it touched your heart. Share it with someone who loves plants or who needs this message right now. Together we form a spiritual garden of connected souls. Your presence here was not coincidence. It was a divine calling. May the peace of Jesus walk with you. May plants teach you. May silence heal you. And may, in the right time, everything bloom within you and around you. You are not alone. You are not alone. You never were, and now you know why.